FBI agents arrived this morning. Their mission to help assist Cass County Sheriff's deputies end a 3-day standoff.
Tom Crossland, the owner of the campground, had been at odds with law enforcement. In May of 2001, police shut down the Cass County campground, which had hosted festivals like Hemp Aid and Roach Roast.
They took this man and just basically kept wearing him down until finally they hit that breaking point, and he broke.
He was angry as hell.
We will fight for our land, and we're gonna die for it. But you're not gonna come in here and take it from me. You're gonna have to kill me for it.
We're continuing to make headway, and we're still looking for a peaceful resolution to this situation out there.
He was expecting violence.
But they waited until somebody got to the boiling point, and from there it went to hell.
It was later that same day they started setting fire to buildings on the campground.
Tom starts the buildings on fire, one at a time. He had lost it at that point.
Police officers don't get paid to be shot at by somebody, and they have to defend themselves. I think that's probably what we saw here.
He raised the rifle, it was fully loaded, and the safety was off.
They shot them poor guys so many times. They said it sounded like there was a shooting range.
And they didn't try to bring them out alive. I believe they just saying what they could do and shot them.
I feel it's straight out execution. I don't believe those men ever pointed a gun at them.
I knew what was gonna happen. I knew he wasn't gonna put his guns down.
Officers blocked all roads leading into Rainbow Farm, only allowing residents to go in and out. For the second day in a row, smoke was seen coming from the farm. Cass County Sheriff's deputies have no idea what was burning.
We still have not established any direct communication with him at this time.
Police have been in a standoff with Tom Crossland since yesterday. He's accused of manufacturing marijuana and maintaining a drug house on his property.
There had been a raid of the property, and they found hundreds and hundreds of marijuana plants.
Crossland has his supporters in the area. To them, it's an issue of personal freedom.
It all roots back to the American Constitution, you know. It's a personal freedom, you know, personal rights to do what you please on your own land. You know, and that's been taken away from Tom.
Efforts were made over the 5-day ordeal to negotiate.
They had the snipers set up. As soon as he was in their sights, that was it. That's what started the end of everything. There's a lot that happened out there, and there's a lot that I'll never know.
Rainbow Farm will live forever!
Southwest Michigan was known as a perfect area for growing marijuana. Primarily farmland area, some rolling hills, and not too far off M60 highway.
Rural America, a divide over the possession and use of marijuana would become one of the most shocking standoffs of the 21st century.
Their federal and state laws prohibited the manufacturing and selling of marijuana. Tom Crossland owned a farm in Vandalia, Michigan. He was trying to legalize marijuana.
Tom Crossland's uncompromising approach creates a personal feud with local authorities.
He was self-made, I guess you would say. You know, everything he'd done, he'd worked to start himself and kind of built up from there. He had real estate. He owned well over 50 houses at one time. He had a flagpole company at one time.
That's how Tom met Riley. He had a flagpole company, and he was working for him, and they got together then.
Tom Crossland and Raleigh Rahm were in a romantic relationship and first met at Tom's company. As like-minded free spirits, they set about building a life together.
They were, you know, gay relationship or whatever, but they weren't outspoken.
And their relationship was quiet, and it kept quiet. Not once did I ever see them make any contact together other than touch on a hand or something. But I know they loved each other because of the way they acted. It wasn't hard to see.
Raleigh had previously been married and had a young son named Robert. When his ex-wife is unable to care for Robert, Tom and Raleigh gain sole custody.
And that, I tell you, that tickled Tom. I mean, That was Tom's son in his eyes, and he did everything he could for him.
After years of establishing himself as a successful businessman, Tom has the opportunity to seek out the perfect place to settle down with Raleigh and Robert.
And then he bought what was Rainbow Farms. When he got to the farm, it was just a sense of relief. It's like all your worries, your stress, you were relaxed. You were carefree. It's hard to explain. It just looked like, you know, any other country backyard. You had the cornfields out there, you had woods and stuff. You get out there and the first thing you were doing is firing up a joint.
Tom and Raleigh plant crops. People flock to their newfound haven where marijuana use is a way of life in open defiance of the law.
Rainbow Farm was like a stopping off for them because people came and left. There was lots of people that stayed in the woods and camped for months.
It was just so much fun. Everybody enjoyed it so much that he just kind of took off from there. And then all of a sudden, he decided, he wanted to have a summer fest.
As more visitors come to Rainbow Farm, Tom Crossland formalizes a pro-marijuana music festival. Authorities cannot ignore this illegal behavior.
Tom Crossland and his partner, Roland Rome, decided to have various marijuana parties and outings and invited hundreds of people there to his farm.
Tom was hooked. He loved it. He just wanted to make them bigger and bigger and bigger.
After the success of his first festival, Tom begins hosting more. During the events, he mobilizes casual pot smokers into political activists fighting for the legalization of marijuana.
They end up having hemp aids and roach roast and, just all kinds of different festivals. And they come from all over. People from California, people from New York, you know.
As the events continue to grow, Tom Crossland and Rainbow Farm come under the investigation of local authorities. Officials feel they can no longer allow the blatant law-breaking to continue in the community.
Yeah, it was a marijuana festival, basically, but I'm sorry, I've never looked at marijuana like a drug.
That was the law, folks, okay? And we are the law enforcement people, and we had to enforce it. And that's what the state police and the sheriff's office were doing.
Tom Crossland's marijuana festivals are a slap in the face to authorities trying to enforce the law. Tom disregards all warnings and continues hosting large marijuana events with extensive drug use.
They would have crowds of people with their campers or tents and things of this nature. They would buy and sell marijuana among themselves. Tom and Roland or any of their employees were not selling any narcotics, but the money was being transferred through third parties. So that's why you don't have for lack of a better word, a hand-to-hand buy from Tom or Roland. It's just that they allowed this to occur once they set up the festivals.
No, hell no. No. Selling dope and no.
The two men running this farm, where they held concerts and there was drug use there, and they'd come into conflict with local authorities.
The state police were monitoring and actually sending undercover people there to purchase these illegal drugs. And they purchased things like, other than marijuana, LSD, methamphetamines, cocaine, and even prescription drugs. And that's what raised the state police and the sheriff's office attention, and then ultimately the county prosecutor. D.A. Teeter was the Cass County prosecutor. Straight up, pretty rational and by-the-law type guy.
Scott Teeter is a conservative district attorney. He believes the illegal festivals at Rainbow Farm compromise the safety of the community.
To me, he was an evil man. To anybody that would take authority like he had and do what he did and create that.
He enjoyed an excellent reputation among the police departments. What drives all prosecutors is, give me the facts. Okay, give me the facts.
Tom Crossland is the political opposite of Scott Teeter, openly advocating to change the very marijuana laws that Teeter seeks to uphold.
Teeter just had more power than what Tom had as far as being into politics and everything.
The prosecutor was tough, but he was not unfair. He was doing his job.
Prosecutor Scott Teeter primes the state police to move against Rainbow Farm. All he needs is a reason.
There was a fatal automotive accident where some people were killed.
The story is that there was a school bus accident, and the driver of the car was under LSD and another narcotic, and a 16-year-old boy was killed.
The driver of the car that was out of control had a wristband on from the concert that had been held on this property, and I think the autopsy showed he was under the influence of drugs, and that led to that behavior.
You go to a concert, people are bringing in drugs to every concert. I don't care what concert you go to in America, any rock concert, anything, people are taking drugs into every concert. It's there, it's how it is.
It sort of compelled the authorities to take some action.
So that enhanced the drive for the undercover people to keep working hard to find out if they were selling illegal drugs. They couldn't prove Tom and Roland were directly involved. They were develop what they call tax fraud warrant.
I think the reason that they started getting in trouble was because somebody that worked on a farm that was expecting something and they didn't get paid. So then they turned them into the tax place. And then they got a warrant, they searched the farm, and that was a bad day.
They went to their house directly with rifles pointing at their head.
The state police came to Rainbow Farm to serve the tax fraud warrant.
District Attorney Scott Teeter orders a raid on the marijuana activists who own Rainbow Farm.
They had no proof, but they're gonna go in there with a SWAT team at 3 o'clock in the morning, wake them up, and then they found marijuana growing.
The state troopers found 200 plants of marijuana being grown.
That's when they arrested my Uncle Tom and Raleigh.
The round that drove the spike through the heart. When they arrested him and drug him out of the house, and Tom had to get everything that he owned, assets, to get out of jail, just so he could get Raleigh out of jail so they could start a defense of why you did this to me. You know, why are you doing this to me?
And they started just throwing everything at him they could.
Advising on a case like that today, you know, I would probably say, do we really want to respond in a significant way to, you know, a minor drug violation? But back then it wasn't a minor drug violation, and authorities were dealing with this drug epidemic in the United States and felt that this was so overt, in-your-face breaking of the law that they had to take some action.
Tom and Roland, they bonded out on condition that you do not have any more weed fest or marijuana fest at the farm. And then, fast forward, D.A. Teeter found out that they were planning another festival, which was in direct violation of their bond. They were trying to get marijuana legalized, and they had a petition they were circulating in 2001. And I think that obviously was a perfect place to campaign for it and try to change the marijuana laws.
He was going to get people to make a change. He knew that you can't change the government by yourself, but if you get enough people registered to vote and you start voting in the officials that you want to vote in, now you can start making changes. I think that may have had a lot to do with them taking him out the way they did, because he was making a difference.
You have to put yourself in the place and time where they were operating, where they felt two guys were flagrantly abusing and violating the law, and they had to take action. I mean, there comes a point where laws have to be enforced, particularly those who are being violated in an egregious manner, or else law and order falls apart.
Scott Teeter up there, they're like, if we can't stop him, well, then we'll just make sure we break him.
Robert was then the 12-year-old son of Roland. When they had these various marijuana fests, Robert drove a golf cart selling different items, soft drinks, some paraphernalia type stuff. That's when I think they went to the state. The state looked at the evidence they had, and they thought it was sufficient enough to go to court and get extraction or take him out of that environment.
And then all of a sudden they find out that his son didn't come home from school that day and get off the bus.
I was there the day we were sitting on the store waiting for the school bus. Every day he'd come down the hill, stop, and let Raleigh's boy off, and he'd go on. We were sitting there, and the school bus just goes on by. Well, where's Robert at? I don't know. And they go find out. Guess what?
They took Robert into foster care.
After the apprehension of Robert, Tom accuses Scott Teeter of once again pursuing a personal vendetta. Teeter insists he is following the letter of the law by keeping Robert safe from open drug use. The toll of losing their son pushes Tom and Raleigh to the edge. All they have left is Rainbow Farm itself.
Tom didn't have any options. Teeter was not going to stop until he took everything Tom owned. And Teeter told him that. Teeter told him, I want to take everything. Your money, your property.
When they were charged with the growing of the marijuana, that's what precipitated the forfeiture through civil means of the farm by the county and/or the state of Michigan.
Crossland is due to appear in court and surrender Rainbow Farm to authorities. Without a guarantee to get their son back, the promise to avoid jail time isn't enough motivation for him to give in to Teeter and the charges.
You can prove that the farm was used for an illegal purpose in Allah, growing illegal marijuana, you can start forfeiture procedures. They did that after they recovered these 200 plants.
So now they're taking his land for the weed that he was growing.
Tom still refuses to cooperate, equally unwilling to give an inch. Teeter pulls the trigger on the legal land seizure.
The court date was set for the end of August. Roland and Tom did not show up, and as I understand it, they told the neighbors that they were not going to give up this farm, not while they were still alive.
Blinded by anger, Tom is willing to play the only card he has left, the complete destruction of Rainbow Farm.
They took this man that was just a nice man and just basically kept wearing him down until finally they hit that breaking point, and he broke.
Basically, everything they built in their lives was being pulled out from under them.
By refusing to show up to court, Tom has forced Scott Teeter's hand. The only way Teeter can seize Rainbow Farm is by sending the state police to take it by force.
their property was going to be lost. What they had built over how many years was going to be lost. Their life as they knew it was going to be lost. And this creates a desperation in people and can drive them to behave in ways that are senseless and self-destructive.
We will fight for our land, and we're going to die for it. But you're not going to come in here and take it from me. You're going to have to kill me for it. Tom asked Scott Teeter, how should we expect our deaths? He said, my family and I do not take your threats lightly, but we are willing to die for our land. So, how should we expect our deaths? Are you going to burn us out? Are you going to snipe us off? He had lost it at that point.
He was angry. He was angry as hell.
Unfortunately, in this case, these two guys were pretty desperate and despondent about their whole life falling apart.
I mean, they'd done taking everything. They took his kid, they took his money. You could see, you know, how they'd wore him down until he snapped. He finally snapped. That day came up where Tom was supposed to go to court.
And that's when Tom systematically set all the buildings on fire, and they burnt them to the ground.
Tom Crossland and Raleigh Rahm retreat to their home at Rainbow Farm. They are in open defiance of a legal land seizure ordered by District Attorney Scott Teeter.
The day that the standoff started, Tom said they're not going to take my buildings from me. And the only way they're going to get my land from me is if they take it out of my cold, dead hands.
The authorities went to seize the land, and the confrontation started.
Tom starts the buildings on fire, one at a time.
Because he knew that when the end situation is, they would have his property and get the benefit of it, and they weren't going to get the benefit of what he had. They're going to have to sift through the ashes to get it.
They had burned some of their buildings because they didn't want the government to confiscate it. So basically, scorch and burn.
When the fire started, the local sheriff department were called, so they responded with the emergency medical personnel, fire trucks, ambulances, and then when they got there, it was a very, very dangerous situation to go into.
He was expecting violence. They knew that they weren't going to let him just stay there, but Tom also wasn't going to let him take his land.
They found out the community was getting involved, and there was people gathering out there to come to their aid. So it was going to blow up into a big situation. So that's when the state police were involved. Then the news media found out about it, and the TV station sent up their helicopter to film these places burning.
A helicopter comes over after things are on fire to see what it is, and from there it went to hell.
When he heard the helicopter coming over, he thought that was the Michigan State Police coming over.
And that's when Tom began shooting at the helicopter as well as a surveillance plane of the state police. One bullet struck the helicopter within inches of the gas tank.
That's what then brought in the FBI, got them involved.
The FBI was there because an aircraft had been fired on.
That then becomes a federal offense. And that's when they pushed the button for the FBI now to show up. And that was our predication to get involved and help them out with the situation. We train for these things, major events, we call them, critical events. I was now part of the hostage negotiating team for the entire division. All we know is the state police and the sheriff's office had this investigation going on at Rainbow Farm, and it involved narcotics, and next thing you know, the buildings are being burnt, and they're shooting at helicopters.
The fires at Rainbow Farm catch the attention of everyone in the small community. Media, supporters, and onlookers flood the scene, escalating the crisis.
The perimeter, that was one of the initial concerns we all had. The state police said, okay, we will use our road troopers to block all the road accesses. Internal will be FBI agents surrounding the house. That's where we used our SWAT team to go in and set up a containment sentry-type position and wait for the negotiators to try and talk to them. That was the plan. Okay, we got to make arrangements to get a phone in there somehow, some way. We have access to this armored APC, armored personnel carrier. We decided to take a phone line, a hard line, put it in the APC, and with the door in the back, run 300 feet phone wire up to the house. We driving up there, and I hear this ting, 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 and I go, you hear that? And the driver yelled, yeah, he's shooting at us.
Seeing armored personnel on his property, Tom Crossland fires the first shots.
There was no peaceful end for it. Tom knew it.
I think when you look at the two men who ran Rainbow Farms, they were probably having the worst day of their life. And as a negotiator, when I see those factors in combination, I know we've got an extraordinarily challenging event here.
I knew what was going to happen. I knew he wasn't going to put his guns down.
Now I'm back at the command post. Next thing I know, we hear on the radio, here comes Tom walking out.
In another move to intensify the conflict, Tom leaves the safety of his home. He confronts the state police, armed and on foot.
Tom spotted one of our guys in the woods. He was curious because our guy was in camouflage and all that stuff. Started walking up this hill. And then when he got up on the top of the hill, he could see that they were human beings. And that's when he raised his weapon.
Tom supposedly hears something, and they go up there, and they just shot him. He walked up there, turned, they said he pointed his gun, and they shot and killed him.
The state police opened fire, killing Tom instantly. The exact circumstances of the shooting will be debated for years to come.
Tom is supposedly sees a sniper and pulls his gun up to shoot him, and then the other two snipers shoot simultaneously. One hits a tree, which fragments the bullet into pieces, and one hits Tom in the eye. That don't jive with me. No, because I know Tom. That don't jive with me.
The FBI pathology reporter, he says, in his opinion, the only way Tom could get the wound under his armpit is if his hands are in the air. Wait, you guys said he was pointing a gun. I also know he didn't point that gun. I do know that.
Police officers don't get paid to be shot at by somebody, and they have to defend themselves. And I think that's probably what we saw here. We went to arrest this guy. He pulled out a gun and he shot at us. We had to kill him. It's hard to fault the police for that.
With Tom dead, authorities turned their attention to Raleigh Rom.
When Tom was shot by our guys, it was in late afternoon. And that's the same time I was working on getting the phone up to the house. A SWAT guy came up to me and handed me a walkie-talkie that they took off of Tom's body.
Raleigh's still in the house alive.
Now I got his walkie-talkie, and I'm sitting there by myself, rolling, pick up, pick up, pick up. I must have said that 20 or 30 times.
You know he was scared. You know, he was feared for his life.
I was in the car, and I was watching our SWAT guys carry Tom's body out. And just as I saw our guys coming down the hill with Tom, Roland goes to me, "What do you want?"
When you're talking to a law enforcement negotiator, you're not having a great day.
After watching Tom Crossland set the property on fire and be gunned down by state police, his life partner, Raleigh Rom, is left alone on Rainbow Farm. FBI negotiator Jerry Alexander holds out hope that a peaceful resolution can still be reached with him.
When I first got on the radio with Roland, he asked me right up front, "Did you kill Tom?" And I said, "Yes, he was killed." He pointed his rifle at 4 SWAT guys. And he was really upset. And then he wouldn't answer for a while. I was wondering what was going to happen next. I'm sitting inside this armored personnel carrier. That's when we found out during the negotiations with Roland that the only thing he cared about was his son, Robert. Roland, if you come out now with your hands up and do what the SWAT team or the police officer tells you to do, you're going to jail. I'm telling you, I'm not going to sit here and say, you're going home. But I will promise you that I will see to it that your son, Robert, will see you at the jail. And there it is, pal, laid out on the cards.
He was supposed to see his son that morning. That's what they agreed upon. That next morning when he was supposed to turn himself in, he was supposed to go outside, see Robert, and say goodbye.
He wanted us to bring Robert to him. We cannot do that. We cannot do that.
He wanted to talk to his son, and in keeping with our approach, they didn't let him have that direct conversation because we're always fearful that someone will say their last will and testament to a loved one.
So that's why we dispatched an FBI agent to find Robert and have Robert write something for us and give us a recording. They came back with the recording and the letter, and I said, "Roland, listen to this." And I played the recording. And basically, it was the same thing the letter said. You know, "I'm okay, I'm fine, come out. We also have a note here for you." And I read that note to him.
He wanted to see Robert, his son, tell him goodbye. And they agreed upon it.
We cannot do that, simple. That's not in the cards, not on the table. And I said, "I want you to get some rest. The state police are going to introduce themselves, and they're going to be here, and they'll be talking with you if you want to talk to them. And I'll be back at 8 o'clock in the morning."
Raleigh Rahm and FBI negotiator Jerry Alexander reach a temporary truce. A mysterious fire breaks out before dawn and changes everything. The origin of the fire remains a mystery. Both sides claim the other started the blaze.
They just kept pushing him. They fired the flash canister in the house in the upstairs room.
When they shot that canister in the house, it said on fire.
About 6 a.m., the SWAT team called me up and said, "He just set the house on fire."
They tried to say that Raleigh started the house on fire, which he didn't.
Well, when it started burning, Raleigh stayed in it until the kitchen door was the only exit he had out them sliding glass doors because the front of the house was burning. He runs out of the house because it can no longer stand the heat. So he runs out of the house, and he's hunkered down under a tree with a gun. He took his gun because, boy, he thought he was going to get some protection, or maybe, who knows? I don't think it's because he was wanting to stand up and pull a gun at nobody, because I don't think it was in him. I just don't think that he had that mentality.
Anybody that knows Raleigh, he was like a hippie. How many hippies do you know that are going to carry an AK outside and go to war with the police? Not very many. I mean, they're peace and love. He was not the type of person to fight.
And he came out. Now, the state police were in charge.
And they say that when he came out of the house, due to the smoke, they couldn't really see him that well. And that's when the sniper shot.
I'm not smart, but let me tell you something. If he thinks he can't see Raleigh, then what makes you think that Raleigh can see him too? If the smoke's covered it.
They've got all the smoke there. The field agent across the field, the sniper, says, well, it looked like Raleigh was pointing his gun.
And he came out and he pointed his weapon at the troopers.
And that's when he shot Raleigh. He did not hit him cleanly. He had a missed shot, and he shot more. They shot them poor guys so many times. The neighbors out there, they said it sounded like there was a shooting range whenever they started, just unloading on them.
So he bled out from the wounds because he hit the artery in his leg.
What about that ambulance company that was sitting right there a couple football fields away that is refusing him service as he's laying there bleeding to death for 40 minutes?
I'm told he died instantly from the bullets. That's what I was told. But then I did see the wounds, and, you know, it doesn't look like he struggled in anything.
They just murdered him. I mean, literally.
He had everything going against him. He lost his best friend. The state took his son away from him. The state's going to forfeit the farm. He had nothing to live for, and that's why I think he wanted to have the suicide by cop. I drove right down, didn't remove him from the scene, and I stood over him and I said, "Roland, I'm very sorry." You know, I apologized to him, and I said, "I wish you would have came out." I even said a prayer for him.
The FBI supposedly sifted, went to the crime scenes and all this, and did their investigation and wrote the report.
We have to write reports, what we did, how we did it.
Went back to every scene of every incident, to the ashes, to the spot on the ground where Raleigh fell, where they did their investigation with Tom, blue gloves laying around, and bone fragments.
They found nothing wrong with the action taken by our inspectors found, and nothing wrong with the state police inspectors.
I'm not an idiot, but I know a bone fragment when I see one.
Teeter did exactly what he said he was going to do. He took everything, along with her life. There's a lot that happened out there, and there's a lot that I'll never know. Just like, I mean, nobody will. We'll never know. I know how good of a man that man was, and I know how good a man Raleigh was.
You can question choices, but, you know, it seems to me that they were trying to do what they thought was right to enforce the law and resolve this peacefully. The two guys weren't an extremist group, and they probably had a lot of people that liked them and supported their concerts and their support of, you know, marijuana and so forth. And that's all great, but you can't condemn the police because you liked or had some kinship with the person that they had to act against. It didn't work out in the manner that I think anybody wanted, but I think it's hard to fault the police because they were trying to enforce the law.
Robert's living a good life. I mean, he don't remember a lot of it. He was young then. I mean, he was pretty young. He didn't want to be a part of any. He don't want to talk about it. You know, he just kind of, he's got a life, he's got kids, he's got a wife. He's a religious man, and he's doing great. And I'm happy for him. You know, the day of the funeral and stuff, there's a double rainbow. And those men, they're good guys. They're good guys.
It's unfortunate, it's tragic. It seems like a terrible waste of life to me, but I'm not sure what else the authorities could do.
Oh yeah, it hurts. You can tell in my voice. It's just a shame when we got there. It was the end. Had something intervened earlier and, you know, where, you know, they couldn't take Robert away from him or something like that, you know, but unfortunately, that's not the way it turned out.
I don't know why either one of them were killed the way they were. They shouldn't have been killed that way. It makes me sad that he's not here, period. He had a good heart. He had a good brain. He had plans for things that would have been nice. Yeah, I'm sad, but sad ain't gonna bring him back. That's the reason I'm here. Not because I'm sad, but maybe somebody listen. Maybe somebody else there might say something. You can't bring neither one of them back, but the laws are changing and you can make a different world. You can make the way Rainbow Farm should have been and Tom and Riley should be breathing like that all over the world. People just gotta change and realize, man, step back, adapt and overcome. Do not butt heads. Adapt, overcome it, work around it.
Rainbow Farm supporters are critical of how the standoff was handled to this day.
Before we decide to move against people in an overt manner, execute a warrant, conduct an arrest, let's pause and think about the what-ifs, the eventualities, the possibilities, and what steps can we take to minimize the likelihood that those things will become disruptive and dangerous and threaten our personnel or someone else. We in law enforcement serve the public. We are public servants. And the public wants to see us use no more force than is absolutely necessary.
No, I don't have any regrets. I'm trying to think, what did I do wrong? I tried to get him out there. His interest is my best interest.
Today, Rainbow Farm is experiencing a resurgence. Events are finding their way back to celebrate legalized marijuana, along with the legacy of Tom Crossland and Raleigh Rahm.
Rainbow Farm status won't ever go away, man. You know, there's errors in life when you achieve stuff and you do stuff that just stick in your head. Like Neil Armstrong stepping on the moon, that moment, that first moment, it's never gonna be like that first moment again. But I'm always gonna have that.
I'll never get over it. I'll never get over it. It's always gonna be there in the back of my mind. Always.
They'll see. It's not like it died. It can't die, man. Rainbow Farm won't never die. It'll stay in people's hearts forever. And if they change and they do stuff right, there'll be another Rainbow Farm.